Hi, in this video, you'll be learning about abstract classes and interfaces. Let's start by looking at an example using animals. We know that every animal makes a noise, but they all make different noises. Dogs, for instance, may bark, and turtles, although they have no vocal cords, can make different kinds of sounds like hissing or grunting by dispelling air from their lungs. So how can we represent this notion in Java? We can start by creating an animal parent class. If we have an animal parent class, then we can create different subclasses for different types of animals by extending the animal class. We know that all of the subclasses will need to make a noise, but they will need to be different too. So how do we do it? We can create an abstract method. Abstract methods are methods that are declared without an implementation. They don't have braces and they're just followed by a semicolon. So if we wanted to create one for our animal class, we'd write the keyword abstract to declare the method abstract. We'd add a return type. We'll use void for now since we don't want to return any value, and then the name of the method. In this case, we'll call it makeSound. It would then be up to the subclass to write the actual implementation of the abstract method. So if we go back to the code we were looking at, we can create an abstract method inside of the animal parent class. Before we move on to implementing the abstract method though, we need to do one more thing. We have to make the animal class abstract too, and then each individual class can now write their own implementation. Let's take a closer look at the features of an abstract class. Like we just saw, abstract classes are classes that are declared abstract. That means you have to use the abstract keyword. Abstract classes are able to contain abstract methods as well as concrete methods, which are the regular methods with a complete implementation. Abstract classes also cannot be instantiated, meaning that objects cannot be created directly from an abstract class. You need to create subclasses and then instantiate those subclasses. Let's focus on an example that creates an abstract class. So here we have a public abstract class named animal, and this class cannot be instantiated. So if we try to create an object of the animal class in this example, it will cause an error. But it can be subclassed. So here we create a public class dog and it extends the animal parent class, and then in the main function we create an object of that subclass. Lastly, abstract classes can include both abstract methods and concrete methods. Notice how the abstract method ends with a semicolon and no implementation, while the concrete method has curly braces and code inside of it that would be executed. Let's now take a look at interfaces. Interfaces are like blueprints or contracts that classes must follow. If a class is implementing an interface, it must provide an implementation for all of the methods in that interface. There is one exception to this, and we'll get to this later. Similar to abstract classes, interfaces cannot be directly instantiated. Interfaces only serve to be a blueprint for how a class should behave. Classes can also implement multiple interfaces. This is different from abstract classes because the subclass can only extend one parent class. If you are working with a version of Java that is 7 or below, then interfaces can only contain abstract methods. If you try to create a concrete method with some implementation, you will get an error. But if you are working with a version of Java 8 or above, like you do in this course, your interfaces can include abstract methods and default methods. Default methods are methods that have an implementation in the interface itself. Let's take a look at an example using an interface. To create an interface, we would use the interface keyword. So we write public interface animal. If we try to create an object from this interface, we will get an error. Inside of an interface, you can declare abstract methods. Any abstract method that is declared inside of the interface must be implemented by the implementing class. That is the contract that they have. And like we mentioned earlier, interfaces can also have default methods. These were only introduced in Java 8 and above. These default methods can have an implementation directly inside of the interface, but they can also be overridden by the class that is implementing that interface. And lastly, classes can implement multiple interfaces. Let's say, for example, that you create two interfaces, one called swimmable with the abstract method swim, and the other called retractable with the abstract method retract. You can then have one class implement both interfaces. This way, you can ensure that the class Tracy, for example, implements all of the methods in swimmable and in retractable. So, to review, Both abstract classes and interfaces cannot be instantiated. Both contain abstract methods. Abstract classes can contain concrete methods as well as abstract methods, while interfaces can contain default methods as well as abstract methods. Abstract classes can be subclassed, while classes can implement multiple interfaces. Both of these tools are extremely useful for programmers, and the one that works best for you will often depend on the type of project you're working on. If you have a lot of closely related classes, then maybe you want to use an abstract class. If you want to take advantage of multiple inheritance, for instance, you may want to consider implementing multiple interfaces. Or you can make use of both. Now it's time for you to further explore interfaces and abstract classes.